everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies Podcast. We have a fun bonus episode of the podcast for you today. We are talking about the Babysitters Club series that is just been debuted on Netflix. And I know a lot of people were really excited for this series, as were we. I was on our guest Austin's channel to talk about just a non-spoiler review of the show. And so now we're going to dive in a little more nitty gritty. And Austin, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Rachel, I feel like I'm giddy every time I'm on this podcast, but again, we have a show that I'm just so excited to talk about. So If you guys don't know me, I have a YouTube channel, Austin Burke, a podcast called Film Strippers. Don't ask how we got that name. And we like to talk about movies and streaming, and my focus is Netflix. So when you approached me again to talk about the Babysitters Club, at first I was hesitant, but I watched the show, and you know what? I can't wait to talk about this. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I was nervous about the show because I hated M with an E so much. Which was on Netflix. And so I was like, oh, I don't know if I trust them with my beloved childhood novels. But I thought the trailers looked charming. And so I watched it. We had just covered Sweet Magnolias, which was so good. We loved that show.
Yes.
And so they were on a good hit streak, Netflix. And so watched the Babysitters Club, and I just loved it. I loved pretty much everything about it. And it had very minor little critiques here or there, but it was so well done. I on every level, I thought the casting was really strong. I thought the writing was really strong. I thought they managed to adapt the books and include all kinds of things from the books without it like leaning on the nostalgia. It didn't feel like something that's like, here's the 90s or here's which they could have easily done. And it wasn't overly kind of, a lot of the stuff made for younger teens is very slapsticky and kind of a bit broad, I would say, particularly on the Disney Channel, which has its place. It's fine. But this is just something on another level than that kind of thing.
Well, it's refreshing. I use that word a lot when we talked about it before, but it's a refreshing show that can hit every single age group. And even now, after it being out for a week and a half now, I see some that are just scared to watch it because, it's a show for kids. It's a show for girls. And that's not the case, right? That this is a show that hits on everything. And while it does have those elements that I think kids are going to love, I said this before, this is a show I would have loved to have growing up over some of these other Disney, with the studio audiences and a little bit cheesy. I would have loved to have had this, but adults can watch this and see those relationships, and especially if you have a child, and get so much out of this. So yeah, I think it's a refreshing show all the way around. And I haven't had the chance to read the books, but for fans who know the books, and I don't know how accurate it is, but I guarantee you have much more of a thrill. And this is probably one of their favorite shows on Netflix, and I don't blame them at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really think if you like a show like, say, The Wonder Years, I think that this is a similar kind of show of talking about the highs and lows of being an adolescent and trying to get along with your parents, trying to figure out what you want in life. All of that's all in there. And I completely agree with everything you said. Well, we're going to dive in and talk about each of the chapters. And so again, if you don't want to be spoiled, don't listen to this podcast, and go watch it and then come back.
Yes.
And then listen. So spoiler warning. But it starts out with Christy's great ideas, the first episode, and they set it up so that for most of these episodes, an individual girl is your lead narrator, that you see her writing at the beginning. You see this is her book. And so Christy's great idea is our introduction to Christy as a character and to the idea of the Babysitters Club. And what did you think of Christy as a character, as our sort of lead narrator?
So Christy is the character that I relate to the most. Mm-hmm. I had this thing as a kid. I'd have to be kind of in control of everything. Yeah. I wanted to be a movie director, and because of that, anytime we would make videos or doing this and that, I would just want to be in charge. And we see that as she progresses through this show, especially in those final 2 episodes, she has to be the boss. But here's the thing: she's really good at it. She's good at what she does, and she's not overwhelming from a leader standpoint. She's a good friend. She's a charming girl. This actress did a wonderful job, and I loved Christy as a character. She may not be my favorite character out of the group, but she is definitely the one I relate to the most.
Yeah, agreed. I think a lot of these coming of age stories can be a little much for me as far as the surly nature, the sullen disposition of the teenager. I get that that's real, but sometimes it can just be a little much for me. And she definitely has some moments where you're like, wow, you're pushing it, girl. You are a lot. but I think that honestly, if I was in a situation when I was her age and my mom was getting remarried, I think I probably would have behaved pretty similar to her.
Yeah. Yeah,
I really would have, because that would be very difficult. I've never been great with change, and I can't even imagine going through that. That would be really hard.
Well, you don't blame her with some of the stuff that goes down later on in the show. It's like, yeah, she's upset, and it may be a bit overwhelming to parents. I can understand how, but you get it because she went through a very difficult thing. And again, it comes back to the fact that this show is adult. I mean, you're dealing with, parents splitting up and only having one parent. And it's just, my goodness, just the level of adult that this show hits is awesome. And a lot of it comes from her character.
Yeah. And later on, we see that it's not only that her mom is remarrying, but she definitely is dealing with abandonment issues with her father.
Yes.
And when she has that moment later on where she's upset that Dawn is calling her dad, and she's upset that Marian's dad is so fastidious, and it's my dad, I hear from him once every 2 years, and you just feel for her definitely in that moment for sure.
It's my goodness, you feel for. I mean, all the girls, they each have a case to where you're getting emotional yourself just watching it. And later on, and I'm sure we'll get to it, we have the babysitters agency, and normally, I would think that I would trust the older kids to be babysitters, say if I had a kid. But you see how mature these girls are and how they handle situations like this. I trust these girls. I would trust these girls with my kids. And you're rooting for them to be able to show that. And I love that. And that really, this first episode, you're off to, a bit of a slow start at times, but you're really establishing who these girls are, and a really good character development through this first episode.
They really do. And I like the fact that also when she starts the club, her and Claudia are kind of in a weird spot.
Yeah.
Like they had been really close, but they had kind of lost touch. And you get a feeling that that's partly Christy's fault. That Claudia had kind of turned more towards Stacey because Christy is a lot and she's pretty controlling, and especially for someone spirited like Claudia, that just all added to the sense of authenticity. There wasn't anything sort of cutesy about it, that like you could easily have with this kind of club and this kind of situation. There's a nuance there to this relationship that you don't always see in things that are designed for this age group. And so I liked that a lot. And it's just you can tell when a series has a real affection for its characters. And one of the things I love about, say, Richard Linklater movies is I think you can always tell, even his less successful movies, that he has an affection for his characters. that he really loves spending time with these characters. And there's lots of examples of writers like that, but there's just something that feels like this is written from an authentic place, that this person really loves this character. And I think that goes a long way to making things work. And so, all right, well, let's talk about Claudia and the Phantom Caller. So this was really interesting. Claudia is failing her math, and so she wants to go to this dance. There's this boy she has a crush on in her art class. And so then she gives her parents Stacey's test so that she can go to the dance, which has a high grade. And she ends up confessing. And then you also have in this, Marianne gets the old phone, the flip phone, yes. Because she was late and her dad is upset. And what do you think of this episode?
I loved the Marianne aspect because I myself had one of these phones as a kid, and it was the worst, and I felt every ounce of her pain. And then really kind of getting into Claudia as a character, and I mentioned before, it is between Christy and Claudia for me, and you made a great case when we talked before about how, Claudia's character, she goes through so much in this show, and she grows immensely as a character, and she's just so likable. This young actress is I mean, I'm going to say this about all of them. They're all really good, right? But this young actress has something about her. I think she could be one of those Netflix stars eventually, budding into an act like a big time star, a big name. So it was a great, not introduction, but it was great kind of getting into her character. And I enjoyed this episode. It's not my favorite episode of the bunch, but relating to so many aspects, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I really liked it too. I thought that it felt authentic again to the way that parents really would react to this situation. Like, she wasn't off the hook, but would have been so easy to make that kind of over the top. And I liked in general the way that the show handled school, and that the girls had a certain independence to their learning, which I like to see. In especially Claudia pursuing her creative desires, and that was very respected by the scripts and her story. And yeah, I really agree on this actor, Momona Tamada. She was excellent, just really bright and charismatic and likable. A really great casting there. And I think that that one nice thing about the Babysitters Club from its inception is that it's effortlessly diverse. It's not a thing. It's just these girls, and there you go. And that's it. And that's so nice. It's just great. It's great for the viewers. It's for the young viewers. It's just great for everybody to see all different kinds of voices and complexions and people. And that's what is great. And that's been the case since the very beginning with Babysitters Club. It's always been effortlessly diverse, which is great. So I like that.
Yeah. It's nice to have that displayed so well on screen. Different backgrounds, of course, different ethnicities, and just different kinds of young girls, kind of approaching life in a different way, regardless of race or perspective. That they all just have a different mentality, but they come together and it seems so effortless. One thing I have to praise about this show is the chemistry between them all. I mean, it's rare to kind of nail this many young, really talented actors, and they nail that because it just seems like they're all best friends. That's how I feel when I watch Stranger Things. It's like, yeah, they're definitely best friends in real life. Okay, there's no way you can make this up. It's great, and beyond their years is what I'll say about this cast for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then we have The Truth About Stacey. And this is where we learn about Stacey and her type 1 diabetes, and that she was basically bullied by kids at her school in New York. And that's why they ended up moving. And this was, I think, it seems like by most people, this is the highlight of the show. This episode is so well done. It'd be easy to make Stacey kind of a almost like a Gossip Girl kind of type of character,
Yeah.
But she's not. Like, you really are are rooting for her and you feel for her. And I thought the whole like parents meeting where she shows everybody her device or monitor or whatever you want to call that, it was really moving and really worked quite well. And that her parents expressing how proud they are of her, you could feel how that much meant to her. It was great.
Yeah, this another story point we'll talk about, but this and that, those are the two elements that got me the most emotional. Seeing this young girl go through what she has to go through and being afraid to reveal something that, for us, we're like, this, why is this a secret? It shouldn't be a secret. It's not that big of a deal. But to her, kind of embracing the fact that she is a completely different person now. And then obviously the video that makes its rounds, and oh gosh, what a horrible thing for people to do.
Yeah,
My goodness.
Babysitters Agency is the worst.
Are you kidding me? Like,
them.
what?
They're awful.
That is, I will admit though, that is the best way to make us not stand that group of people. So
Yeah.
From one perspective, it was really well done. From another perspective, get out of here with that crap. Like that was the worst. But you feel for Stacey so much, and when she finally embraces that a bit later on, oh my gosh, just a character arc. Oh, just a wonderful moment in the show for sure.
It was so good. I'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. They're the good folks over at Care of, and they make getting vitamins and supplements easy and hassle-free. They can come right to your door, so you don't have to go out shopping or take any kind of risk to go get your vitamins. They come right to you. And what's really nice is that you can take their online quiz and you answer some questions about your diet, your health goals, and your lifestyle. And they recommend the vitamins that will be the most helpful for you. And so, for instance, I took the quiz, and it only, like I said, only takes a few minutes, and we were able to narrow down some things that will help me hopefully with my sleep, because that's one of my biggest health problems, is that I have a hard time with my sleep issues. And so it's really great. They come to you right to your door, and you get these little packets that you can take every day. And so if you want to put some in your purse, or you're traveling or something like that, they're very, very, very easy for you to take. And it's just really positive, very personal. There's a great attention to detail. They have great quality that you can see and taste. They focus on quality, science, and research that goes into each of their products and recommendations. Their yummy protein powders are made with wholesome ingredients you can recognize, like organic cocoa and pink Himalayan sea salt. I've been really impressed with what I've been sent. It's something that will help you to be your best and to be healthy. So I recommend taking the quiz, getting the vitamins that you need, and checking out Care of. For 25% off each of your first 3 months of Care of, go to takecareof.com/Hallmarkies25. Enter code Hallmarkies25. That's 25% off each of your first 3 months of Care of. Go to takecareof.com/Hallmarkies25. Enter code Hallmarkies25. So then we have Marian Saves the Day, and this Marian meets Dawn in this episode, and then she is assigned to take care of a child named Bailey, and when she arrives, Bailey has a fever, and so she has to figure out what to do. She calls the hospital, and so she and we find out that Marianne's dad and Dawn's mom were high school sweethearts. So that is this episode. I mean, I liked Marianne. I liked her, gaining confidence throughout the show. I think the Marianne's dad was a little much for me. That if I was going to nitpick the show, I think that he was a little too much of a caricature for how authentic the rest of the show felt.
Yeah, he was a tad bit cartoonish.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but that goes, along with what that actor does. He acts that way in a lot of his work, which is fine. which is fine. I didn't not like the character. It's just I'm kind of with you. If there was a weaker spot, it would definitely be that character. I do like the concept of them trying to get their parents together. It's sweet. I like the introduction of Dawn. It was a nice kind of, we're going to throw things off here a little bit and introduce someone else. And, being someone who wasn't as familiar, I kind of forgot at first that we were throwing in another girl. And then I look at the poster, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So it was a nice, she's not my favorite character, but it was definitely a nice introduction. And again, just a talented young actress.
Yeah, very appealing. I enjoyed her, and her sort of energy that she brings into the group is fun. And also Christy kind of bouncing off of her and being like, I don't like this new person. Why am I not in control? is good to see. You also see Christy I forget in which one of these episodes, but she's babysitting for her new soon to be stepdad. And we get to meet Karen Brewer, who, if you're a fan of the books, there's a whole line of the Babysitters Club Little Sister and books. And I could totally see them doing a spinoff with Karen Brewer because she is so cute in this.
Hilarious.
And she's super superstitious and has a wake for her dolls when we first meet her, which I loved. It's so Sophia Reed Gansert. She was adorable. So yeah, I was a big fan of Karen.
Yeah, I want to see more of Karen. And I love the little setup we got at the end of the season to kind of bring that in a bit more. I'm interested to see where they go. But man, every time I'm like, this girl, she needs an episode. Give her an episode. And I would have been the happiest person ever. But she is such a cute. How did they get so lucky with this cast? She's fantastic.
Yeah, she really was. She was really funny. So then we have Dawn in the Impossible 3, and Dawn is assigned to watch this incredibly stressful situation with this single mom who's trying to be an actress and really not appropriate behavior from this woman, with just leaving her children with this young woman without the proper instruction and knowledge. And at one point the child is just taken away and she doesn't know where he's gone. They're looking for him. It turns out that it was the dad that picked him up without telling anybody. So the whole thing is just a mess. And so we also have in this episode, Marian starts to get her room redecorated. And so that becomes a couple episode plot of her stress, her having anxiety about this redecoration because it was designed by her mom who's passed away. And so the changes from being a little girl's room to being, a woman's room, a teenager's room, is really hard for her dad. And so what do you think of this episode?
It's a really good way to show someone holding on, and that her room is her way of holding on to her mother. And I love that. And I have that, I have something that my grandmother left me. And if I were to ever, lose it, that something happened to it, I would be devastated. And I think everyone who has suffered loss in their life or something of that nature has this, and that is her room. So when they redecorate it, it's hard for her to show appreciation, even though you can tell she is appreciative, but she just doesn't know how to display it because at that age, it's hard to tell someone, hey, why'd you do this? It was sweet, but why'd you do this? So I really like that. Another episode that is not maybe the most entertaining of all of the episodes, are kind of building up to one that I absolutely love, but there is a lot here, a lot of depth to this episode that is nice to peel back for sure.
Yeah. And when Dawn's mom tells off the single lady, it was such a good moment. I forget her exact words when she was like, lady, my daughter's not raising your children, is basically what she said. And I was like, yeah. And when it was especially great because here you got one single mom talking to another single mom and saying, get with it, deal with it. My daughter's not going to do this anymore. And it was a great moment.
Yeah, and Dawn's mom, she's doing it right, and
Yeah.
she's just she sees this chaotic situation. What a horrible thing to one put your kids through, but then to put someone else's kid through. No,
Right.
that was a crazy sequence, and I loved that conversation. That was just like mom power. Let's go! It was awesome.
Yeah, it was really good. And so yeah, then we have Claudia and Mean Janine. This is another highlight, I think, of the season, this episode. We talked about it on your show that Janine is a little much. She's, along with Marianne's dad, they're probably my two least favorite characters. But I do have to give, I can't remember Marianne's dad in the book, but this whole plot was right from the books. There's even literally, the book is called Claudia and Mean Janine. Oh, wow. And and I guess that Janine was actually based on Anne M. Martin's actual sister, which is very flattering. But yeah. But Janine is a lot. She is a bit of a caricature. She's a little much as far as being this sort of almost robot human. That is not very sympathetic to Claudia. Of course, we are seeing this from Claudia's perspective, and so that's probably part of it. But still, it's interesting how this episode still works so well, despite that not loving that aspect of it. But Mimi, her grandma, ends up having a stroke. And the change, not only obviously that's sad for Claudia, but having her one sort of advocate that she felt like the person who understood her the most all of a sudden changed and different is really hard for her. And I thought that it was a really, really lovely episode.
Beautiful episode. This is my favorite episode of the season. Loved this and I would say Stacey's episode, the two fantastic emotional rides, but with, and we, both went through this recently, losing grandmothers, and this is just, it hits so close to home, and seeing Claudia kind of deal with this internally and shutting out those around her and what happens between her and her sister, everything about this episode. And you made this comparison before, so I want to steal it from you and not give you credit. Just kidding. The farewell. This very much reminded me of the farewell condensed into one episode with the younger kid as opposed to someone. The perfect comparison, and just a beautiful episode. One of my favorites.
Yeah, and I thought the whole sort of realizing that her Mimi is changed and this is going to be something different, and her sort of envy at Janine, that Janine can speak Spanish and speak Japanese. Her envy that Janine can speak Japanese is just really definitely rang true for me. I mean, when my grandma, we were so close, and 10 years ago, she had a heart incident that changed her. It changed her because she had to go on different medications and different stuff, and it just changed her. She was never quite the same after that, and we still loved her, of course. But it was like, okay, this person is different, and I'm going to grieve a little bit for the loss of that person. Also worry about the future and what's going to happen and all that. It definitely rang true for me, what Claudia was experiencing. And even that envy of your siblings, somebody with I have 5 siblings, and you see that connection, and you can kind of envy. I wish I had that connection. I wish I was that close. What's going on? So yeah, it was excellent. This episode is excellent. I highly recommend it. Okay, then we have Boy Crazy Stacey. This is also directly from one of the books. This is one I remember, Boy Crazy Stacey. And Stacey and Marianne go on babysitting trip to the coast, and Stacey gets a crush on a handsome lifeguard, and she ends up kind of abandoning poor Marianne, has to do all the babysitting. but Marianne's kind of resentful of the fact, like, we were going to go bikini shopping, we were going to go do all this stuff, and Stacey has spent all this time with this lifeguard. And so, yeah, what did you think about this one?
Well, I'm thinking, the more I think of Marianne, the more I'm like, well, maybe I am more like Marianne, because I have been Marianne in this situation before, going on a trip with my friend a long time ago when we were younger. He's like, hey man, we're gonna hang out, we're gonna have a great time. And then we get there and it's just girls, girls, girls. And I'm sitting there with my sandcastle and my loneliness, and it's just tragic. So I felt Marianne's pain. Yeah, a cute little episode, and we've kind of dealt with all of these super emotional things. What's left? Oh yeah, that's relationships and boys. Let's start dealing with it a bit. We had a bit at the beginning of the season, but yeah, I enjoyed this episode. It was cute. We got away kind of from our situation, split the girls up, which was cool, and it was a fun time for sure.
Yeah, it was really cute, and there's other boys there that are closer in their age.
Yeah.
And Stacey ends up getting her first kiss, which is exciting.
Yeah, that was cute. That was very cute.
And then Christy babysits Karen, and this is one of the most hilarious scenes of the whole show, when Karen is like, that's my dad's secret blue door, that's where he tells all his secrets. And so Christy goes in the door, and then she ends up getting locked in there, and then Karen starts to wash her dad's car with the Brillo pad, with the with the steel wool, and I kind of wish they had shown the stepdad's reaction when he saw that, because that would have been funny. But you see them have the talk about it after. And so, yeah, that was a sweet relationship to see the relationship between the stepdad and Christy go from being very bitter, very upset, very contentious, to he finally kind of wins her over, especially when he buys her the dress, the blue dress. And so, but yeah, Karen, I know, I just thought that was so funny. I was just like, that's my dad's secret blue door.
And that's the thing though, is this all reigns so true, because he is trying. I mean, he is so trying to build a relationship with Christy. He is not a cliche, because the cliche thing to do would be, it's the mean stepdad, the mean stepmom.
The bad man of business.
Yeah. And this guy's like, listen, I want us to be good here. And I'm really trying. And Christy, she's just so stubborn. But she finally gets herself in one of those situations, and it's hilarious. But it's also like, oh man, now if this doesn't make him upset, nothing will. But you know what? Sai just breathes it in, and he says, we're going to get past this. And that is because I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I have the patience for something like that. I would be pretty upset. So I give this guy kudos. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I guess maybe he's used to dealing with Karen, so he gets it. But yeah, it was a good moment. You could almost feel like he was like, yes, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. Seriously. This is the thing that she'll finally win her over. But yeah, and so then next we have Christy's big day, and this is the big wedding. And what do you think of Alicia Silverstone? We haven't talked about her yet, as Christy's mother.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like the 90s, one of the faces of the 90s. So it's really cool to bring her back and have her serve this role. And she's been, kind of playing the mom role lately. She's great. And this cemented that for me. If there's any hesitation to say that she's great, this is the episode when they have that conversation at the end. You can just see that chemistry. You can see how well she's portraying this character, how much she has grown as a person. And their life has changed now. So it's a great way to do that. And I loved that moment at the end. It really topped the episode off nicely.
Yeah. This is, I think, an example of the good writing in this show, because this show isn't afraid to have flawed characters.
For sure.
Because in this, you have Alicia Silverstone's character getting upset with her daughter unfairly and yelling at her because she got the blue dress and was wasting money on the yellow dress. And obviously it's your wedding day. You're stressed out. You say things you shouldn't have said. And I just think that takes guts to have flawed characters that grow, and especially a parental figure who's willing to say to their kid, I'm sorry, I screwed up. That's authentic. That's real. That's something you can relate with. And I was thinking about the other day that that especially watching most shows, especially most coming of age shows from the 80s or movies, the parents are just the worst. Even something like E.T., the mom, she's kind of the worst. I mean, she's just so, how could she be so clueless to what's happening in her house? Like, what?
Yeah.
And you know, they are like walking on eggshells around her. They can't say certain words. And I mean, it's not the kid's job to do that. And so I think this is on a different level of a character with, I don't know, a certain degree of sort of nuance, and I really appreciate that. And when she when she does come out of the car and she finds out that the big reveal is Christy's had her period that day, which is really a very authentic moment, and I loved that. It was so good.
Well, you're not going to find a lot of kid shows and I say kid show not meaning pure kid show, but you know what I mean, a show kind of intended for that audience, dealing with that, a girl getting her period for the first time, which is important in a young girl's life. And that's something that I think needs to be in more shows like this. I really do. And I love the way they hit on it. I love how she has her friends there to support her, which was awesome. And then her mom getting out of the car. It was just a beautiful moment. And you said it best. It's parental figures and characters that, you know, on the outside may seem, they know exactly what they're doing, but really, and this will be the case for me when I'm a parent at some point, I will have no clue what I'm doing. I am going to
you're
grow.
Just making it up every day.
Seriously, I have a dog and I don't know what I'm doing, and he's old and does nothing. So I know I'm going to grow with my kid. And I love when shows can kind of display growth on that level, not just growth for kids. So this show did it beautifully. And that was kind of the completion of that arc. And they put what small differences they had together, they put that aside and came together. And that embrace was just awesome. So I loved her arc. And Alicia Silverstone did a wonderful job.
It was so good. Yeah, it's true. I think that every human being has a moment when you're like, oh, my parents were just like me. They were just making it up every day. They were just they had no idea what they were doing. Yeah.
That's gonna be me.
Yeah. So then the last two episodes are the Hello Camp Moosehead Part 1 and Part 2. And in these, they're off to Camp Moosehead. They originally think they're going to all be together, but they end up splitting them all up, which was probably a mistake on the part of the camp. But then you have Karen getting lost, which was a cute arc.
Yes.
And the head of the camp, basically Christy and Dawn are kind of like, you didn't even know that she'd gotten lost. Like, what kind of leadership is this? And I know it's maybe a little over the top, but the whole barricade and Les Miserables like going on in front of because with Dawn, that made me laugh. And they're protesting because all of the different art activities are an additional expense. Very expensive, so people can't participate. And so Dawn builds a barricade, and it was really funny. I thought. I mean, it was great.
Yeah, it was funny, and it's played in a way, and you would think like, oh no, but when they were writing this show, they had no clue how relevant it would be with the protesting and whatnot. And it's so funny that is the case. And you can see the other side too. It's like, sure, we don't have enough money to supply, but you get the kids' perspective. Everyone needs to be included here. And so you understand that. And it is so funny seeing these young kids, just try their little hearts out. And I loved these two episodes in that way. Now, I will say maybe they're not as it may not be the ending I would have selected personally. Having the girls go, I would have liked to have showcased the actual Babysitters Club maybe a bit more
Yeah, I could see that.
in these last two episodes, if that makes sense. But I saw really no major flaws in these last two episodes, and the fallout between some of the girls, and the addition of the new girl that comes in.
Yeah, Jesse and Mallory get
Yes,
introduced, which is so
so
fun.
a lot of nice introductions, a lot of nice moments, and a solid finale for an overall solid show with some really cute moments.
Yeah, I think that the camp director's a little much for the grounded tone of the show,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I agree with you. I think it might have been nice to have one more if we could have had 11 episodes,
Hmm.
and to end with a real Babysitters Club kind of episode, but yeah, I really liked the revolution, and Marianne is putting on her play,
Yeah,
and
so cute.
yeah, and then Karen was that was really cute. So, and Claudia is doing the underground art classes for,
Yeah.
for the
Yeah,
kids.
cute.
And so yeah, there we go. That, and we also see that Christy is just so uncomfortable when she can't lead. She's being asked to not be in a leadership role, and that's just not her energy. That's not who she is
Yeah.
as a person. And so then they finally learn at the end, the camp counselor's like, okay, you guys are leaders. We're making you leaders.
Because we have no choice. This will
Why
not
don't you fight
stop
it?
unless we make you leaders, which is funny.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and it's silly too that you'd have this problem with the camp supplies, because like for instance, the tie-dye shirts things. Why does it have to be that shirt? Why can't they just tie-dye whatever they have? Why does that,
Yes.
and why does they have to buy the $50 premium cotton?
Hmm. I agree. That
Yeah.
is ridiculous. That's one of those things I look at and I say, realistically, I think we could have made it work. I think we could have included everyone, but I think for the show, they're like, this needs to be more of an issue. But you're right. Why does it have to be this big, expensive, festive? Like, yeah, I think I'm with you on that.
So yeah, so that is the season, and I am a little bit worried with everything going on. They've got to get filming fast for
Hmm.
season 2, because these kids are growing. They're growing fast. You got to get in there.
Yes.
um, so hopefully, because if they can't film until 2021, that's going to be a lot of different kids.
And these girls, they're at that age too. They're going to start hitting their growth spurts, and they're going to look a lot older next time. They're going to be the
Mhm.
babysitter's agency age. So it's like, oh, guys, we need to. And I know they can't help it, but I want them to film tomorrow if they
I
can.
know. Like I'm thinking, not only would I, if I'd say film season 3, like
Yeah.
film just because these kids are gonna be growing up. Got to do back to back, because everybody loved this show. It's a great show, and so I don't want it to go away, because COVID can't take it away from me.
Oh, I know. If they take away a possibility of doing a season 2 right after, I am just it's not going to be
Yeah,
good, Rachel. I'll be very upset. It's not
me
going to be
too.
good.
Me too. So, yeah, so that's our thoughts. Let us know if you have seen the Babysitters Club series, what you thought. Did you like it as much as we did? What were your favorite episodes, favorite characters? We'd love to hear, if you're listening, hear your thoughts. And yeah, I mean, they totally tease season 2. Obviously, we're going to get it with
Yes.
more Mallory and Jesse.
Yes.
And so, yeah, that will be awesome. But thank you so much, Austin, for coming on and talking about Babysitters Club with me. And hopefully we can have you back on as we get more fun stuff on Netflix. And so how can people find your channel, where you're at, and all that fun stuff?
Oh, no, thank you, Rachel. Thank you for coming on recently, too. If you guys want to check out our other podcast. You can go to Film Strippers on iTunes and Spotify and YouTube as well. We have a YouTube channel. As for me, Austin Burke, talking all things Netflix, streaming at the Burkinator on Twitter and Instagram. And yes, whenever you want me on, I would love to come back on because I always love our discussions and talking. But I told you this, I want a bad show. You need to bring me on for a bad show because we've had a really good streak now. I need to get some negativity out there.
Yeah, well, let's join again for Kissing Booth 2. I'm pretty sure.
Don't do that to me, Rachel.
I'm pretty sure that one's going to qualify.
No. Oh, yeah.
Well, we'll be in touch. Make sure you guys are following Austin's channel. It's really great, especially if you like the streaming coverage. He does it all. It's really great. So, yeah, and make sure you're following the podcast on Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave us your ratings and reviews. We really, really appreciate that so much. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate that as well. And you can follow me at Rachel's Reviews all over social media and on iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So please check that out. And we have our merch store, which has some really fun stuff. And we have our patron group. And we're going to be doing our patron movie watch with Christmas Club on the 17th. With writer Julie Sherman Wolfe is going to be there. And so that's going to be really fun. You have to get it on your DVR on the 12th coming up. So make sure that you set your DVRs and then become a patron so that you can join the patron movie watch. And it's going to be really fun. So thank you so much, Austin. Really appreciate it. And we will talk soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.